So, welcome everybody to the guided lyric workshop here tonight. So, what I wanted to do this evening is really give you one of the, I would say, one of the techniques or one of the processes that I have used for a while to write lyrics. And I find that it's very efficient and a way that you can write without sitting and waiting for like the lightning rod of inspiration to strike. Sometimes if we would wait for inspiration, we'd be waiting a long time, which is fine. Sometimes there are times where you just don't feel like writing or maybe nothing's coming. Um, Personally, I don't really believe in writer's block. I think writer's block is where you let your critic take over and you're putting too much pressure on yourself, right? It's usually not that there's nothing to write about. It's just you kind of put so much, is this good or bad, pressure on yourself. So tonight, hopefully, we'll get into that creative space and we're just going to write. And I'm going to write along with you. So I think this will be fun. So I'm going to share my screen. So we're going to do lyrics tonight, so we're not going to get into like melody or anything like that, but for this we're going to go step by step. I'm going to do some of the writing with all of you, and then I'm going to show parts of what I'm doing to my writing on the screen, so you can sort of do the same thing if you're writing in a notebook or if you're writing on your computer screen. Like, you can sort of do the same thing that I'm doing in the steps. But the first thing that we want to do is we want to name a place. So wanted to sort of crowdsource ideas on places. So if you want to put in the chat a name of a place, and that could be very generic, like it could be like, high school or, backyard or like something like that, or it could actually be a named place. So, and then I'll pick one, and then we'll kind of use that as our starting point. So just give it a few seconds here, have everybody put some places in the chat, and then I'll pick the quote unquote winner. Awesome. Looks like some are coming in here. Ooh, Victor Hathaway going dark. Jay, my mind. Angela, Cottage in the Valley. Anybody else have ones that they want to put in the chat? So now I get to pick. Oh, another one popped in. Berlin. Interesting. So the two that caught my attention were Shelley's, which is Sawyer County, and 22nd Avenue. And my gut says we're going to go with 22nd Avenue. So Dory, we're going to go with yours. And the next step in this process is we're going to do the sense writing or the object writing that we've done in other workshops, where we're going to take about 5 minutes and we're going to write from our senses about 22nd Avenue. So think about, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? How does it smell? How does it move? What's going on? This is all about not thinking. So don't think I need to rhyme. Don't think about writing lyrics. This is just free flow, like subconscious, just stream of conscious writing, right? So I'm going to use my laptop so I can type and leave this on the screen. Then I also need to set the timer. And you should probably get a good long paragraph or two out of this, if you're kind of doing it in a way that you're just kind of writing what comes to your mind. So we'll give it a go, and then any questions on this, especially if you're new to sense writing or object writing. I know a lot of you have done this before with us, but
Are we just writing like individual words or paragraphs? Like
You could
full
do it.
sentences.
You can do it either way. If you do individual words, you can do that. Where I think writing some things in sentences and some things in phrases will help you in future steps because we're going to use some of those as some writing material. But however it comes to you, if it's words, if it's sentences, if it's both, just really try to write for the full 5 minutes and try not to stop. All right, ready, set, go. All right. So that was our 5 minutes. So hold on to what you have written. And let me make sure that what I had written actually is going to pop into my other computer here because I'm going to share mine on the screen. Yes, perfect. All right. So this is what mine um, looks like. And we're not going to share everybody's yet, but I'll just kind of read through mine to give you a sense of where my head went about 22nd Avenue. So I wrote, the sun beats down on the pavement that is cracked and 1,000 degrees. A pair of shoes hangs off the power lines, and hydraulic cars and this was supposed to be booming stereos circle a distant parking lot. I walk in the sweltering heat, pushing myself to keep going. Sweat burns the corner of my eyes, and I can feel my shirt sticking to my back as I sweat. My eyes are squinted, and I try to keep my gaze on the ground as I hear the sound of my shoes rustling as I walk, pushing tiny pebbles. This part of town is all warehouses and old industrial buildings, broken glass and chain link fence, graffiti from artists tagging any open wall. Interesting people strolling and standing, everyone feeling the heat, but in their own world. I can smell cigarettes, tar, and dust. A few pigeons swarm above a building as they look for shade. 98 plus degrees and no breeze. These are the cooking days in July when everything wants to melt and it feels like it's all about to boil. I keep walking and thinking and wondering how long it's going to take me to get home. I'm getting so tired now and I feel a little out of place here. And then I wrote bricks and metal, and then the timer went off. So that's kind of an example of what this might look like if you're new to sort of the concept of object writing or free writing. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to pull interesting lines from what you had written. So usually what I will do as I am writing like this is I will just make a column and I'll just call it lines. I like to separate it from kind of the rest of what I'm doing. And then I will just sort of retype. So like, for instance, a line here is sun beats down. Pavement cracked and 1,000 degrees. So I'm going to go through this whole writing and pull out all of the little phrases that sort of stand on their own. So another example would be like pair of shoes hangs off of the power lines. So do this with your own writing as well. So take what you've written and pull the lines out. I'm going to take just a few minutes here while you do that. I'll do this as well, and then we'll move on to the next step. And you can put any questions in the chat, or just you can ask as well. So I'm going to get to work on mine. Okay, so how's everybody doing on theirs? I got all my lines pulled out now. Um, so the next step, once you do that part of the process, is to now sort of look for rhyming lines within the lines that you pulled out of your writing. So we're looking for words that have when we're talking about rhyme here, we're looking for words that have a sonic identity. So it doesn't have to be perfect rhyme. It can be words that are sort of sonically related to each other. So I want to show you an example in my writing, kind of what I mean by this. So what I will do is when I'm writing on a computer, I will move the lines, or I'll copy the lines up to the top and put the lines that rhyme next to each other. So I'm going to start with my line: cigarettes, tar, and dust. So I'm going to put it up here. And so dust, I'm going off of the U sound, the So rhyme happens in the vowels. So words that rhyme usually happen mostly with the vowels. So I'm going to look here through my lines and see if there's anything that have sound. So there's rustling. So I'm going to move that up here. Let's see if there's anything else. There's above. So I'm going to move that. And again, this will be different for whatever you had written, but look for words that may rhyme. So I'll keep doing this too. So now we have like sun beats down. I saw ground. So I'm going to move that here. And as I'm looking through all of my lines, I'm kind of always scanning back and forth of like what is the sound that I'm looking for at this point. Well, so let's see if there's anything. Oh, here's a now. And you can also change the order of the word, so you don't um, have to necessarily leave what you had written in the same sort of syntax or kind of the order that the words are in. So you can definitely move things around or change the phrases so they fit. But let's take a few minutes and have you look for rhymes within your writing as well, and then I'll keep working on mine. And if you have any questions, put it in the chat, and you can kind of watch me working on mine as well.
Does this exercise require a minimum amount of matches?
What was that? Sorry.
Does this exercise require a minimum amount of matches on the rhyme front?
Nope. Nope. So kind of whatever you can sort of pull out of it. So it, various sections on how you write are going to have different numbers of things that are rhyming. So there's no real, um, I guess, like minimum or anything that you need to have. But good
Okay.
question.
Okay.
How's everybody doing on this part? Do you feel like you want more time on this, or you ready to move to the next section? See, some people are still scanning. Um, so while you're kind of finishing up on mine, if you look at sort of the end rhymes here, and I didn't go too much into like rewriting lines, so I could have, like graffiti from street artists or graffiti on the street. I could have moved that up to like the breeze and degrees. Um, those types of things. I for just timing, I just kind of did end rhymes. But so I have like dust, above, rustling, building, standing, down, ground, now, town, home, going, stereos, metal, pebbles, power lines, eyes, here, breeze, degrees. I also had heat a few times here. But looking for rhymes that are not necessarily perfect rhymes, like you have the additive assonance rhyme of like above and rustling. You have buildings and standing. That's a consonance rhyme. uh Going and home, that's a assonance rhyme. And if you're not familiar with the 5 types of rhyme, I have some other videos on the YouTube channel that talk about the different types of rhyme. And also you can just search for 5 types of rhyme with Pat Pattison, because Pat teaches the 5 types through Berkeley. And I teach it at Berkeley now as well. So once you have the sort of lines in sort of rhyming pairs, the next step in the process is to start moving your lines around and try to put some into a rhyme scheme. Like, try to, if you want to start with simple rhyme schemes, like I'll put some in the chat here, like, A, B, A, B. You might have X, A, X, A. So these, when we're talking about rhyme schemes, the letters equate to matching sounds. So A's have the same rhyme, B's have the same rhyme, X's don't rhyme with anything. So you could have lines that aren't rhyming in your sections. You also might have couplets where it's like A, B, B. If you have 6 lines, you might have like A, B, C, A, B, C. Also common is AAB, CCB. If you write 2 4-line sections, sometimes it's cool to do like AAAB, CCCB. So you actually have 2 sections that sort of build up some tension, and then it resolves it later with the B rhyme at the end. But try to experiment with just certain rhyme schemes, and put the lines that you had selected into that structure. So I'll show you what I mean here. Oh, I missed a bunch of words down here. I didn't see those. Do they rhyme with anything? I'll figure it out. So I'm gonna do an A, B, C, 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 B. So now I'm gonna go up here and I'm gonna find lines where I have 3. So like here I have down, ground, now. I also have town, I have home. Actually, I'm going to take this line. This one's a cool one. Whoops. I want to leave it there. I just want to copy it. And I'm just going to paste it here. So what I'm doing is I'm finding words that fit the rhyme scheme that I selected. So whatever rhyme scheme you selected, you can do this as well. Now I have to find a B rhyme. I'm going to use this one. And then I'm going to keep going because I need to find different rhymes to then A's, but then I'm going to find one first for this B. So I'm going to go up here to C. So I'm actually going to move this down since this is a telling line. One of the rules that we've talked about in other workshops is show before you tell. So putting the pictures or the imagery words in your sections before you actually talk about the emotion is a good way to pull your listener in to set the scene and to put the emotional lines into context.
We're going to watch you do that, or can you repeat that again?
So that concept, and I think that was Judith, right? I think I recognize your voice.
Yes.
So show before you tell is kind of the general thought process where you want to use images if you can before you use feelings, because by showing images before you show the feeling, it gives that feeling a context, so we know how to sort of interpret that feeling as the listener, if that makes sense.
Okay. And what was the heading on that called, please? You called that
the saying it show before you tell.
Show before you tell. Okay. Thank you.
And if you notice in this process that I'm doing, there's not a lot of sitting and looking for like, what am I going to write? I'm just plopping things in and sort of making this really kind of a just sort of a process. So once you have your rhyme scheme set, I sort of have verses at this point. So without adding any other filler words like articles or conjunctions or prepositions or anything, I'll read through this once I delete. Some of the lines may or may not make sense, but you can kind of then go through and sort of massage them a little bit to see if they will make sense. So my verses would be hydraulic cars and booming stereos, pushing myself to keep going. How long till I get home? 98 degrees and no breeze. cigarettes, tar and dust, pigeons swarm above, hear my shoes rustling, feel a little out of place here. So it sounds disjointed right now, but you can add extra lines to make it start to sound more natural. So so I might say, like, there's hydraulic cars and booming stereos, and I keep pushing myself to keep going. I wonder how long till I get home in this 98 plus degrees and no breeze. Smell, or I smell cigarettes, tar, and dust. See pigeons swarm above, and I hear my shoes rustling and feel a little out of place here. So now I've written my verses. So I want to go back here and look at what the next step I wrote down was. So the next step 5 is what I just did, is to try to sort of experiment with your line order and try to refine your section. So you may stay with what you put into your first rhyme scheme, or you may change it, right? So again, there's hydraulic cars and booming stereos, and I keep pushing myself to keep going. I wonder how long till I get home in this 98 plus degrees and no breeze. I smell cigarettes, tar, and dust. I see pigeons swarm above, and I hear my shoes rustling, and I feel a little out of place here. I might drop the here, and I feel a little out of place. That sounds like a verse to me, right? It kind of sets the scene. It tells you who's there. And at this point, I'm not judging this. I'm not thinking, like, is this good? Is this not good? It just sort of is what it is. It's a good exercise in letting the song sort of speak to it, or tell you what it needs, sort of. So if you want to take a few minutes and put some of your lines in order, that might be a good next step, and let you work on that for a few minutes. I might scan mine and see if there's anything else that I might put, but I feel like this is kind of, I feel like this is decent start for me. Any questions on this so far? And Monica said she came in late. So Monica, what we did was we did free writing about 22nd Avenue. That was our starting point. So we all started writing about 22nd Avenue. That was just a place. So we wrote from our senses. We then pulled the lines out of what we had written, and then we put the lines in rhyming groups. So we looked for words that rhyme with each other and moved them next to each other. And then what we did was we created rhyme schemes and then dropped some of the lines into the rhyme scheme. And then what I did for mine was I added prepositions, articles, and conjunctions to really tie the lines together, because a lot of times it doesn't sound natural when you just plop them in, so you have to fill in the blanks a little bit to kind of massage it to fit. So right now everybody is putting some of their lines into some kind of order, and I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and I'll come back. So while you're working, I was just reading over mine. So I have the AAAB CCCB rhyme scheme, and then I noticed when I dropped here, it actually changed my rhyme scheme, because breeze and here were the rhyme. So breeze and here is a assonance rhyme. So it's like the second to the last most unstable rhyme. So it almost doesn't sound like a rhyme. But that helps to create prosody with what's being said. So when we talk about prosody, we're talking about how does what you're saying, how does that get supported in the structure? So the structure of your song, things like rhyme type, rhyme scheme, um, the number of lines you use, the rhythm of lines you use, the number of lines you use, all of that can be used to create it's used to create the sense of balance or unbalance or stability and instability to match what the lyric is saying. So it's all about um, creating sort of a film score with the structure to support and amplify what your lyric is saying. So as I was reading mine, I have the stereos going home. Has the long O rhyme or the relationship, even though they're not perfect rhymes. I have dust above rustling. So those all kind of rhyme. And then all of a sudden, if I leave here off, it's just like place. It doesn't rhyme, which I'm thinking that fits perfectly with what it's saying. It says, I feel a little out of place. So we're expecting another rhyme and it never comes. So that feeling of instability or not being resolved fits with what I'm feeling out of place. So that creates more of a strong sort of prosody feeling. So that was something that I noticed in mine. So as you are writing, you can think about things like that. Like how, if you are writing about an unstable topic or maybe something that feels unresolved, and that could be positive or negative, right? Like you could have an unresolved feeling of happiness where it's just kind of excitement and you're giddy and you're bouncing all over the place. You can make structural decisions based on what your lyric is saying. So that was something that I thought of as I was reading mine. I was like, ooh, this kind of works pretty good here. How we doing on doing your verses? Everybody kind of working? Are you ready to move on here? Jeanette, you move on, stay, move on? Cool. Dory's like, move on. So the next step in the process is now we're going to do more free writing, but this time instead of thinking about the place, we're going to free write about what is the character in your song feeling. So like what are the emotions that are happening inside the character. So the first writing that we did was really more external, it really more concrete detail. Where now we're going to go inside the character for 5 minutes and free write about what that character may be feeling. And I'll just leave mine on the screen as well, but try not to let it distract you. So I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. So write just whatever comes to mind about what your characters are feeling. Sometimes it helps to put yourself as first person and speak through like, I'm feeling this, to really kind of pull it in to a more, I would say, intimate view. You can always change it to another point of view, but starting first person is a good way to start. So we'll give it 5 minutes and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next part of the process. So here we go. Got about 5 seconds left. I started running out of thoughts. So that's the time on this part of it. So um the next step, once you have your feeling writing or once you have the emotional writing, um step 7 is pull out interesting lines that stand out to you, and also lines that could be potential titles of your song. So look at what you have written and look at, are there any lines that sort of um like stand out to you, like they just kind of call out like, hey, I'm pretty cool, like pick me. And is there anything that feels like it could be a title in kind of the story that you're developing? So in mine, I'm setting this scene where I'm kind of like, walking through this neighborhood trying to get somewhere, but I feel out of place. So now I have to think of like, what am I going to sort of put into a chorus? Like, what is the emotion of what I'm saying? And I think for me and what I'm writing, it's really about being uncomfortable. It's being pushed to the limit, sort of feeling those things. So as I scan what I'm writing, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking through that lens of what I have started. So that's what you should do as well, is kind of look at what you had just written and see what sort of fits with where you're going. So we'll take a couple minutes, and you don't have to necessarily look for rhyme in this, just look for lines and possible titles that could stand out. So I'll look for mine and then you do yours as well. So some of the lines that I uh, thought could be potential lines, could be potential titles in mine. I have My Mind and My Body, Had Enough, I Am Winning. I thought Low on Fuel sounds like a title. Can't Stop Now, Closer, Mind Games, Endurance and Grit, Pull Me Under, Grab the Prize, Before Time Runs Out, Find the Fire. I also had Out on Top as well. Um, so those, I'm going to move these down onto the page so I can have it all on one. So once you have the titles or the lines and that, next step is to really put them into a chorus. So kind of write a chorus. And the easiest way to write a chorus is to simply repeat whatever your title is, right? So I like find the fire. So my title here, and I'm going to write this on top. So if I want to write a chorus really easily, I just repeat the title. So it would be find the fire, find the fire, find the fire, find the fire. So, but I think there needs to be a little bit more in this case. So that's one way that you can think about writing is just repeat your title and say, does that sum it up enough? Because sometimes it will. Sometimes your title will just work and it just says everything you need to say and you don't have to expand on it. I'm going to look at some of these other lines and see if I can drop them in to create more sections here. So reading my verse, I said there's hydraulic cars and booming stereos, and I keep pushing myself to keep going. I wonder how long till I get home in this 98 plus degrees and no breeze. I smell cigarettes, tar, and dust, see pigeons swarm above, and I hear my shoes rustling and feel a little out of place. So moving directly into find the fire doesn't quite make sense, right? So I have to either do one of two things. I have to either add to the chorus or I need to write a pre-chorus that bridges the verse to this chorus, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking maybe like a couple line little pre-chorus. So I smell cigarettes, tar, and dust, see pigeons swarm above, and I hear my shoes rustling, and I feel, I'm going to change this to so out of place. And I'm going to pull some lines out of here. So this journey is testing my mind and my body. And showing my endurance and grit. I know I gotta find the fire. So now this makes a little bit more sense, right? So one of the things that I think a lot of songwriters forget to do is as they're writing songs is to actually go back and sort of read how everything flows into each other, right? So starting at the top and reading down to make sure that it makes sense is huge. And again, at this point, I'm not worrying too much about, is this going to be the next, number one song? I'm just experimenting. I'm just being creative with what has come out of literally nothing at the start of this workshop. So we've been doing this just at about an hour, and I've got like a verse of 8 lines, or kind of like 2 verses, 8 lines, 1 or 2 verses. And then there's a 3-line pre-chorus, and then I also have a chorus. So it says there's hydraulic cars and booming stereos. This might be, as I keep pushing myself to keep going. As I keep pushing myself, I keep going and wonder how long till I get home. In this 98 plus degrees and no breeze, I smell cigarettes, tar, and dust, see pigeons swarm above, and I hear my shoes rustling, and I feel so out of place. This journey is testing my mind and my body and showing my endurance and grit. I know I gotta find the fire, find the fire, find the fire, find the fire. So that sounds like it makes sense, right? Like that sounds like it's sort of telling a story, it's going somewhere, it sounds like it's conversational. Who knows what the melody would be, but that kind of feels like it works. So I'm going to leave it like that for now. So in your writing, see if you can make a chorus either by just repeating your title or putting in like other lines. So like if I was going to do this, I might say like, I know I got to find the fire, won't let it pull me under. Under and fire is a consonants rhyme. Find the fire, won't let it pull me under. Find the fire. Can't stop now. And then I'll just say, gotta find the fire, find the fire. So this would be my chorus. This is the pre-chorus up here. Any questions on that part of this so far? Is this helpful? Like as you're seeing this process, like is this, I can only see a few of you. A lot of you have your cameras off, but what do you think so far? How are you hanging with me in this? I know sometimes songwriting isn't that glamorous, but how's it going? Judith, thumbs up. Sweet. Awesome. JP says very helpful. Dory says it's helpful as well. Awesome. So some of this I learned from Andrea Stolpe, who was my instructor at Berkeley and who's been a mentor of mine. Some of it's just come from experience of like trying to write when I don't feel like writing. You know, this is definitely something that takes some practice, and you're not always going to end up with stuff that makes any sense at all, but it's still a fun way to really get your critic out of the room, right? Like if I would have sat here and said, well, what's my first line going to be? And then I have to find a rhyme, and then I have to do this. That can take like hours to do. Whereas we just took 1 hour and I have more than half of a song done. And I was even teaching you guys. So this can be a really efficient way to write, especially since we have a songwriting challenge coming up in August where you'll have a week to write a song. So ding, ding, hint on this might be a good way to do it. But there's other ways to do it as well. So Victor said he's a morning person. He's not finding his fire tonight, but this is very inspirational. At least he gets the spider under his desk. There you go. So the next step, once you create your chorus, is really to then use some of those concepts that we talked about in the last workshop that we did. So when you are writing your second verse, as we had talked about in previous workshops, you advance the who, when, where, and what. So you can go deeper into your story by advancing one or all of these things. So you could change perspective, you could change, you know, the time frame, you could change where it's happening, you can change what's happening, but the idea here is that it should always lead back to the chorus. So in this case, I kind of want the next verse to actually feed back into the pre-chorus too, because I'll probably leave the pre-chorus the same lyrics each time. Or I may also drop a pre-chorus. Like I don't necessarily need to have a pre-chorus the next time the verse comes around. So really, I'm walking in the first verse. So I'm walking through this neighborhood, smelling all these things, doing all these things. I feel out of place. Maybe the second verse for my song could be like, I felt this way before, and I always found a way out. So that might be the concept. Because then it could go back to this journey is testing my mind and my body and showing my endurance and grit. I know I gotta find the fire. And I think in its current form, I think I would come back and look at this first verse again to try to figure out how to make it mean more to a listener and how to make it say like, well, what do you mean by finding the fire as you're walking through a neighborhood, right? Like, so that might not be the strongest thing unless I can kind of turn it into a metaphor, right? You know, like my mind's like this neighborhood where there's hydraulic cars and booming stereos, and I keep pushing myself to keep going, and I wonder how long till I find my way home. It's 98 degrees and no breeze, cigarettes, tar and dust, pigeons swarming above. I hear my shoes rustling and I feel so out of place, you know, and that could be a metaphor in my mind. After you outline your verse ideas, then that's when you basically can start writing a second verse. So, and you can do that for your bridge, same process, third verse, same process, all those types of things. So, so that's kind of what I prepped for tonight. Does anybody want to share what they've written so far? If you've been doing this, is there anything in your work that you think might be a little song start or something that you want to share? And you can go ahead and raise your hand or use the reaction to let me know if you want to read something. So let me know. Monica, you have your thumbs up. Did you want to share? There we go. So Monica put in the chat, and I think Ryan, I saw that you had put something there as well. I'll go back to that. So Monica says she doesn't want to read. Totally cool. So Monica's says, getting closer, ready to boil over, closer to my dreams, not having to be seen, can see the light. I'm going to keep up this fight. I'm breaking generational chains, making sure that my family's legacy will change. My script has been written. The cameras are shining. Keep pushing. A means to an end is what I'm working. Awesome. Those are your feeling lines. Those are great. That sounds like a song right there. That's great. Nice work. Let me go back to Ryan's here. So Ryan, it looks like you have a couple of them. Do they lead into each other?
It turns out they kind of did. The second one I actually kind of marked down as my potential chorus.
Okay. Do you want me to read it?
I don't mind reading.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. We'll find out now if I need to add or more words. But yeah. So I wrote, my heart is pounding under my coat. There's a timid curl in my shoes. My toes are doing what I wish I could do. I grip my lapel and I won't let go. It's my shield, my disguise, and all I can surmise is that I'm a long way from home.
Very cool. Awesome. I like how you had images in the beginning, and then you wrapped it up with all I can surmise is that I'm a long way from home. You took that sort of showing, and then you told us, why did you just tell us that? You said that because you're a long way from home. So awesome. That's really good.
Yeah, I actually ended up doing something I've never really done before. It's kind of just a different rhyme scheme, which was kind of cool.
Awesome. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Shelly, you had your hand raised.
Okay, so mine is kind of sing-songy. And I moved my stuff around, so I don't know. So it's called Nowhere. Today I meandered down 3rd Street, lost in thoughts and time. Stepping on cracks and breaking backs was this young girl's worst crime. Physical me is standing here. My mind keeps going there. Mentally, I am chasing fear and spiraling into despair. No one saw me coming. No one even cared. I didn't come to say hello to memories that live there. I am here. I am there. I am here. I am there. I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Awesome. That was cool. I like some of the rhyming stuff that you did that sort of, it kept the momentum changing. So there was a lot of nice contrast in there, but that was cool. So how was this process for you, Shelly?
Oh, you know me. I mean, I have all these lines in here that I didn't use. There's all kinds of things with the trees. The trees were moaning disapproving groans at me and all kinds of stuff. But then I just start writing, it just starts like flowing. And then I get distracted from your directions and I just keep like moving things around to make it fit into something. It's certainly not at all what I thought I would, like you sit down to write a song, like what am I writing about?
Yeah.
And clearly somebody's struggling on 3rd Street instead of 22nd. That was too many syllables for me. So,
Yeah. Well,
so
that's the name of the game, right? Like it's not about where you start, it's where you end. So like if you start working on something and you get, down another path creatively, like follow that path. I think the hardest part a lot of times for us as songwriters is getting started. And I think what these exercises do is it gives you something, because you can't work on something if there's nothing, right? So you want to have you want to get it written and then get it right is what I have heard the saying. So nice job,
Yeah.
Shelley.
thank you.
Judith, what you got?
I've got a mouthful of words that makes me chew, or at least I've chosen words. I have a lot of internal rhymes. I believe it's what they're called. But I do have an idea for a first verse, and I will recite that.
Cool.
Your hand provided my hands to provide for my needs all these years. I have arrived retired from regular service. The day I dreamed is here. So I have an AB, and I have the first line ends in provide. Arrived is in the third line, so that's AA. And then for B, I have for my needs all these years is B. And then the last one is the day I dreamed is here. So years in here. But
Cool.
and then there's a line that I'm not quite sure grammatically, I'm not quite sure how to say it, but it's I'm happy to be at the beginning of something I was at the end of. I'm at the end of, okay. I'm happy to be at the beginning of something that I was at the end of. And it has to do with, let's see where I put that. At being at the end of working, at the end of working, I retired from regular service, which is part of the first verse. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to be at the beginning of something I'm at the end of. And I'm thinking of a title of
So
Now I'm Living.
the Now I'm Living, that's a great title. So how you just said it, that last time that you said it, you said you're happy to be at the start of something that you're ending. I
Right.
think that's how you say it, right? Like you just say it.
Okay.
Because I think you do have a lot of extra words that don't, like, I'm at the end of something that was going, but it's not, you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of
Exactly.
keeping going. So simplifying it and
Yeah.
being, that's one thing that when you see songs that are really well written, they say a lot in very few words. And I think that's a skill that takes practice, is how do you become so efficient in every word having a place that's where you have to start thinking about, like, what am I saying and what are the important words here? Like, I think the important words are, um, your you're setting the point in time, right? You're pointing, or you're setting the vantage point by, I'm at the start of something that's ending.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say something that's ending, the next thought that a listener is going to have is, well, what's that something, right? And you kind of go on to say, I did my service, I did my time. Um, it's the next phase in my life. Now I'm living.
Yes. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Jeanette, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, okay. So I gave it a try. So I titled it To Be Here. So it goes, my favorite greasy spoon across the street, shuffling my feet. My eyes are bright as the night glows. Everybody's here. They know. And in my courses, there's a celebration. My ears are buzzing. I made the best decision to be here on 22nd. Second verse is feels like a Friday night. People are watching. busy cars, music thumping. It just feels right.
Cool. So the question that I had when you were reciting what you said is, I think you said a line like everybody knows, and it sort of ended or it stopped there. I was like, what do they know? So that would be kind of a natural place where you could add some more lines as well. But nice work.
Thanks.
Jay, you had your hand raised as well.
Yeah, real quick, Chad. This was planned in advance, right? Like I don't remember having plans for tonight. I was like, man, this workshop just pop up or
It was planned. Yeah, it's been planned for a couple weeks, I think. I threw it on a couple weeks ago.
yeah, I just been in the middle of moving and everything, so I'm just kind of like faded out. Anyway, so I actually kind of lost myself in this, and I kind of started with a cityscape in 22nd Avenue, I believe it was. And
Yep.
so as it kind of transcended into a Western, it was kind of like a boy from the wrong side of town type story. All the aristocrats on 1st through 21st Avenue, and all the people who don't have anything on 23rd and up. So that's kind of where I went. But anyway, I just end up with I choke on sawdust as my shirt drips dank, sweaty with musk. It's only Tuesday, but I'm worn through and through. I work my prison as this town from which I've risen, cast my die on names, yet none were blood blue. I look up at the sun, and it's nearing straight up. It's just about the time when the tax man will come. For the rich boy who called on me, I can't afford to fight you, but I'm far too impoverished to afford your disrespect to shine through. That's
Wow.
about as far as I got on that last segment.
That was
But
really cool, Jay. That was nice. Lot of really good images. Like it didn't sound cliche at all. Like I didn't know where it was going. It sounded completely original. Yeah, that was really great. Nice work.
thanks, man.
It would be fun to hear how a lot of you would set some of these to music, but hopefully you see that there's so many things that you can write songs about that it's not always just what you hear on the radio, and it's not just all the everyday things. Like Jay, that seemed really fresh to me. Like I loved like what you had, so that was super cool. So awesome.
Thank you, man.
So some of the other people in the chat here. So Dory there are so many places I like to go, but the place I love and the friend I know is where the music syncopates and sings, plus gently pulls on my heartstrings. Balmy nights, hot summer breeze, sitting under moonlit trees. Love the vibe, love the jam, love the groove on 22nd Avenue. Awesome. I love that. I think you could actually cut avenue down to Av and have it rhyme with jam. Sitting under the moonlit trees, love the vibe, love the jam, love the groove on 22nd Ave. And it would be a cool rhyme right there. That's really cool, Dory. Awesome. I could hear that as like, what's the Diane Warren song that Elda Barge did? Feel the beat of the rhythm of the night, dance until the morning light. Like that song, that kind of would have that feel to it to me. I don't know if that's how you hear it, Dory, but that's how I saw it. JP has put 2 and 2 together makes one last forever. He said it was a play on words with 22nd Avenue. I like that. Put 2 and 2 together. That's great. Angela has cobblestone and cement, old homes turn into businesses, creative hopefuls in line, breaking feet, breaking strides, air empty like a desert, feels like bad luck. Get out while you can. There used to be peace here. Get out while you can. So who am I to judge? Get out while you can. You're looking for a ticket out. Get out while you can. That's long gone. So I'm assuming the title is Get Out While You Can, which is I can feel the tension in those lyrics. So that's great. Nice work, Angela. Gavin said his phone was about to die. Judith said she has to take off as well. Awesome. So that's kind of all I have for all of you tonight. Anybody have any topics or questions or anything that you want to bring up to the group, or you want me to cover or go over? Or hopefully this was helpful to see a little bit of a sort of a creative process that you can use to, try to spark some ideas when there maybe aren't any. And a lot of you wrote some really cool things that I'm sure you probably never expected or you didn't plan to write. I'm very impressed. Ryan, you had your hand raised.
Yeah. So glad you asked, and I'm actually happy to ask you this question. So I tend to write kind of a lot of introspective kind of stuff, asking myself questions, and sometimes that comes out in my lyrics. Do you have maybe any thoughts or advice about how to treat questions in your lyrics? I've heard that like if you ask a question, the listener expects like an answer, but sometimes leaving it unanswered can give some of that kind of suspense, but especially when we're doing more introspective stuff like we did, at step 4. But didn't know if you had any advice for questions and lyrics.
I mean, not directly. I think I don't agree that if you ask a question, you have to answer it. I think my perspective would be, think of songwriting as any other form of communication. Sometimes we ask like either hypothetical questions where we're saying like, what would happen if this happens? I'm just saying, what does that look like? We also ask like rhetorical questions where it's kind of like we're just sort of asking it, but we don't expect an answer. So I think that same thing applies. But I do also think that it depends on who you're asking the question to, because there could be context where you are talking to another person in the song, which could be either like direct address where you're saying like, where did we go wrong, or like what happened. You could be asking yourself a question, so you're kind of turning it back, more introspectively.
90% of the time, usually what it is, it's like I'm asking myself a question. Yeah.
And I think with everything, it all depends on how you lead into it, right? Like if it's done in a way that your listener understands that you're sort of having an internal dialogue, and it's not confusing them to where they think there's another character in the song, I think that's the key, right? Like you can do about anything as long as the listener doesn't get confused.
And there it is. Cool.
Yeah. And I think that's where reading your lyrics from top to bottom every now and then, just to make sure, like, am I actually saying what I need to say? Because one of the things that we all do, I still do it, is I have the picture plain as day in my head, right? Like I know exactly what I'm talking about. And then when I play it for somebody or show it to somebody else, they're like, yeah, I didn't get any of what you just told me that's about. So sometimes reading it aloud can sort of show you that, oh, I'm not telling them the right situation here, or I'm not getting to the point the way I should.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But
Thanks.
one powerful tool to turn sort of thoughts into concrete details, or how do you get more imagery when you're talking about emotion, is to use metaphor.
Right.
So you can think like, well, what does this feeling feel like? Well, I feel lost. Well, what does being lost feel like? Well, I can't see where I'm going. So what is a situation where you can't see where you're going, right? Like a snowstorm. So like my mind is a snowstorm type of a thing. So now all of a sudden you have images, but you're still internal, right? So you can play with the pictures there. Because I think one of the things we all do as songwriters is we get to the point where we just start telling people how we feel. And when people are just telling you how they feel, you understand it logically, but you don't feel it. But
Sure.
if I say my mind is a snowstorm, all of a sudden there's something there, right? Like if you say like I'm really confused, It's like, okay, I know what you're saying. But if you say my mind is a snowstorm, now all of a sudden I get it. Do you know what I mean? So that's something to think about too. Victor has what might be a long question. He says, I often have difficulty writing a second and third verse to match the first verse, feel kind of boxed in by the rhythmic structure of the first verse. Any tips on getting this to feel more natural, or how do you do this? So I am a firm believer that your verses should match pretty closely melodically and structurally. When you say that you feel boxed in, do you feel like, what do you mean by boxed in?
Well, it's just hard to get. So, when I'm thinking about the kind of stressed and unstressed syllables and, trying to come up with lyrics that actually match that also say what I want to say without sounding kind of forced or contrived.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The easy answer is that's where the work comes in, honestly.
Yeah.
Is really like, how do you say what you're wanting to say that sort of fits the rhythm? I think for me, what's easiest for me is if I come up with a melody. So I'm not consciously thinking about a stress pattern. All I'm doing is I'm writing words to a melody. Like, it's almost like I'm writing a parody to my own song, if that makes sense. I think all of us have sung other words to a song that we know, because you know the melody, so you can just like, it just comes. So a lot of times what I will do is write like a verse and a chorus, and then I will listen to it or just sing the melody line, no words, and I'll listen to that over and over again so it gets in my mind. So then I can like write lyrics to that. Because I agree with you. If I'm doing stress patterns, like, and what's funny about this is I teach this at Berkeley. We get really deep into the stress patterns and like all of that stuff. You can also just practice writing to stress patterns too, like do daily, instead of doing like daily object writing, you can do daily rhythm writing as well. Pat Patterson's book, Songwriting Without Boundaries, has a lot of chapters about that. And it has daily writing exercises on metaphor, writing in rhythm, writing couplets. Like, you sort of, and sometimes you're just writing nonsense, right? Like, you're not even really trying to make it make sense, but what you're doing is you're training your mind to think in rhythm as you write, which is kind of a cool thing. So yeah, definitely check out that book if you haven't. It's good. It's the companion to writing better lyrics, Victor.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
I was giving Victor Hathaway crap because he always talks about Pat's book. So two Victors. I forgot that.
Oh, the other Victor. Yeah.
Awesome. But no, great question. Because that, and if you listen to songs, here, I want to show you. So there's a couple of different ways to think about matching syllables. I'm going to do a whiteboard here. So everybody has probably heard of the term common meter, right? So common meter is where you have 4 stress syllables, 3 stress syllables, 4 stress syllables, and 3 stress syllables. So that's the Mary had a little lamb, fleece was white as snow, everywhere that Mary went, lamb was sure to go. So that's common meter. So you can have matched rhythm where the number of stresses matches, but there is, different unstressed. Or you can have perfectly matched, which is where everything matches. Not everyone. So what does this mean then? So if we look at Mary had a little lamb, that stress pattern goes kind of like this. and it basically repeats. So it's dum dum da 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 dum, and then it goes to dum da dum da dum da dum da dum da dum da dum. So there's 4 stress syllables, 3 stress syllables, and then it balances that out with 4 stress syllables, 3 stress syllables. So you can either do matched, where it could be dum da da dum da da dum da dum. Whoops. So this is matched. It's not the same, but you still have 4 stress syllables. So melodically, you could theoretically fit in an extra syllable here and there. It just changes the rhythmic feel. So you have dum da dum da dum da dum, which is a duple because it's 2, it's a pattern of 2. It's dum da dum da dum da. So that's 2. Now you go to a triple feel. So it's dum da da dum da da dum da dum. So there's still 4 stressed syllables, but the unstressed syllables are different. Does that make sense? And then if you had perfectly matched, then that's where this line and this line are exactly the same. Like the syllables are the same, everything's the same. So that's kind of that's the Max Martin way of writing, where like nothing changes from verse to verse. But then you also have more, I would say, more traditional writing where there may be a few extra syllables here and there, but generally it's the same number of strong syllables within a section. So the other thing that you have to think about is this is very nursery rhyme, as simple as it gets, right? If I wrote a line like, leave me inside of this empty space, and maybe, I don't know if maybe I even wrote this, so it'd be leave me inside of this empty, of this empty space. So the pattern here, that's funny, it's actually this one right here. So it's dum da da dum da da dum da da dum da dum. Leave me inside of this empty space. So real lines are not straightforward all the time, just like duples. There's triples in there, there's a duple in there, it's different. You may even have like another word here. So it might be like tonight. So then you have this sort of irregular pattern, but then as you write, leave me inside of this empty space tonight. Leave me inside of this empty space tonight. Da 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 da. So as you're writing, you can then pay attention to the feeling to try to match it, instead of trying to say, I need to match all of these syllables exactly. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's real helpful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Ryan says, being a blues and R&B songwriter, this is gold. For sure. Yeah. And that's the thing, is knowing what's happening with words is the main thing. Like I tell my Berkeley students when I'm instructing them, like, the way that you think about this in a workshop or in a class is not necessarily how it shows up when you're actually writing, because a lot of times it just comes from feeling. But if you know what's happening with syllables, you know when you kind of maybe need to adjust something, you know, like let's say you misstress tonight. Instead of having tonight, you have tonight. We don't really speak tonight, or we're going to the movie tonight. We're going to the movie tonight. So it's weak, strong, not strong, weak. So sometimes we will force lines to fit a rhythmic pattern when it shouldn't. And I think that, Victor, is where you have to think about, is it matching? It might match, but is it correct? And the goal is to maintain the natural shape of the language. So yeah. Shelley, did you have your hand raised?
I was gonna say what I do is when I have my first verse is I like paste it in to where my second verse needs to go. And I really am line for line matching and saying it out loud, but I actually put those words right in there. And then I take that second and I just am typing them in, making sure that everything matches up, especially the, getting those accents to come in there right and stuff.
Yep.
So that has helped me too. And everything you just said really helps too. Today I was listening to a podcast and the guy was saying for whole, half, whole, half, he had like a little whole, half, whole, half. And the way he made this little thing, I was like, he's like, that's how we remember it. And I was like, what a great way. Just add a little
Songs.
lyrical, yes,
Yep.
for something that we use all the time, but then just to be able to like, oh yeah, that's how you do it. So that just reminded me how important it is to make sure our stuff has kind of that sing-songy sound to it and it sticks in our brain better. So
That's a great suggestion, Shelley, where you copy your first verse and then you actually work from that and try to make it match. That's brilliant. Yeah. Also with kind of doing this, and I kind of just lost my train of thought, actually. It was something you had said, Shelley, about it'll come back to me. I lost it. Must not have been that great. Victor, you had your hand raised too.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, Chad. Well, first I want to let Victor in on the joke. Victor, I think you have been here for a few times when I've been rapping with Chad about Pattison. I'm actually a big fan of his work. It's just that first chapter when I bought the book when it was new about 25 years ago. I was a much younger man and thought I had figured out everything at that point, and really didn't like that whole approach. And this has been my evolution as a songwriter since joining this group, is that Chad is kind of like the Billy Graham of the songwriting world. He's made a believer out of this old village atheist. So that's what that jab was all about, and well placed, because it leads me into Chad. I think I really loved tonight. I didn't get a lot done here and didn't read because I think, as you said earlier, it's the energy at the end of the day, and I haven't had caffeine in a long time, so my writing gets a little slow. But tonight's stuff really fleshed out what you talked about on Friday in the advancing your verses. This really just kind of actually didn't flesh it, maybe just really provided the skeleton to it, but it provided a lot of detail that I can build on from what we covered last Saturday. So this was a great one for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Kind of what you just said too made me think of, one of the keys to all of this stuff, sometimes we learn it very like linear, like, I taught it step by step tonight, and it's like, well, now you do this, and now you do this, and now you do this. But if you understand each step, you can start at any point in the process, right? So like, let's say you come up with a chorus and you're like, I really love this chorus. Well, now where do I go? Well, then you can start thinking of where is this happening? How did we get here? Like all of these things. And if you have your chorus, you usually have your emotional side. So that means maybe I should do some physical free writing and think about the senses then, and then sort of work backwards there. I want to show you guys, if you have a couple minutes, I want to show you a process for lyrics that I have been experimenting with. I'm going to clear this. And I call this, I've heard of people doing this, but I literally have been doing it lately. And this is writing backwards. So like a lot of times, like I will start with an emotion, right? Like I feel excited. And then what I'll do is say, well, why? Well, and this is made up, but I met someone new. And then I'll say like, oh, like, well, when did that happen? And then I'll say last Saturday in the park. And this is just kind of cliche nonsense, but then I'll say like, or so like, I feel excited. Well, why? Well, I met someone new. Well, where did that happen? Last Saturday in the park. Or when did it happen? Last Saturday in the park. And then sort of think like, well, like what's another question? Like who, where, when, why, how did it happen? Like they walked past me and caught my eye. This is the most cliche thing on the planet right now, but then when you work backwards, then when you read it forward, it sort of makes sense. They walked past me and caught my eye last Saturday in the park, and I met somebody new and I feel really excited, right? So you can actually start where you're going and sort of ask, why does this matter to the listener? Like, I don't know if any of you study any like Six Sigma or like business, like problem solving or anything. There's this concept called the 5 whys. And the concept is where if you ask why 5 times, you can get to the core problem. So like in business, they'll be like, our sales are down. Well, why? Well, our products aren't as good as they used to be. Well, why? Why aren't they as good? Well, we changed suppliers. And like, why do we change suppliers? Well, because we could save money. Well, why do we need to save money? Well, sales are down. So you ask why 5 times, and then you supposedly get to whatever the real reason is. But I was thinking like, this is kind of the same thing with songwriting too, where you can sort of write something like, say like dark alley late at night. Why does this matter to the listener? Well, I was all alone and freaked out. Well, why? I heard something. Why? Someone was following me. You know, so now if you keep asking why you just told your listener something, it can give you this sort of fast creativity to kind of keep your song going and create something really quickly. So dark alley late at night, I was all alone and freaked out. I heard something and someone was following me, right? So there's part of a verse right there in like 5 seconds. So I like to do that sometimes as a exercise, is just take like a random word or a random title and just ask, why would this matter to the listener? Like, why would the listener care? And I just do that a few times, and every time it kind of gives you, or at least it gives me in my mind, something that I can write to, which is something to maybe try to. I want to think about how to actually have a better system for it, but that's something that I've been doing. Razzie says he likes the method. Storytelling seems to come easier, reversing how one line reflects on the others. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks so much for tagging along tonight. Hopefully it was helpful, and hopefully you got some ideas on how to stay creative and all of that stuff. But just a reminder, there is the next meeting is coming up on the 22nd, where we're actually going to do the song share meeting. So we have 7 people that have their songs in already. We have a wait list started, but we're going to do some song reviews coming up on July 22nd. And then there's other meetings that I scheduled too, and I don't remember the dates right now. It's getting late for me too. I'm starting to lose my mental train of thought. But thanks everybody for joining in, and it's good to see you. Good to see you, Shelley, and everybody. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.
Chad, real quick before you go, and I'll make this 2 seconds. Do you guys have like a Facebook group or anything you guys all used to like stay in contact?
Yeah, so the best way is probably my community, which is at homesongwritingcourses.com. It's free.
Okay.
You can sign up. Also, there is a Facebook page, but it's not really a group. So I think the community is better. And then, of course, through Meetup as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just anything in that vein. Would love to keep in contact with y'all.
Cool. And there's a YouTube channel too. So at homesongwriting.com is the YouTube.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Perfect. Everybody have a good night and I'll see you soon. Bye.